Right now, you might be replaying a single sentence that someone spoke to you hours ago. Your mind is examining the sharp tone of their voice, or perhaps the way their eyes shifted when you walked away. You are dissecting a casual remark, trying to uncover a hidden meaning that might not even exist. Your body is completely frozen in the darkness, yet your thoughts are running at full speed. It is a deeply exhausting kind of wakefulness. You want to press a pause button, but the machinery of your brain keeps turning. Maybe you are reviewing your own responses, wishing you had chosen different words. You are searching for a sense of safety by analyzing every detail of the day. This constant scrutiny does not protect you, it only keeps you awake. Let us notice the physical reality of this room right now. Feel the texture of the cotton sheet against your shoulders, and notice the cool draft moving across the floor. The world outside has slowed down, and the distant hum of traffic has faded into a quiet murmur. You can hear the small, rhythmic sound of your own breath. Your eyelids are heavy, but the space behind your eyes feels crowded and bright. It is as if a lamp is still burning inside your forehead. You do not need to punish yourself for this internal noise. Tonight, we are not going to fight the clutter in your head. There is no need to fix your entire life before morning arrives. Imagine a vast ink-black sky at midnight. High above the earth, a massive flock of migratory birds is circling in the dark. Their wings are heavy with fatigue, and their feathers are chilled by the high-altitude wind. They have been flying for hours, searching for a solid branch or a quiet field where they can finally rest. Yet every time they look down, they see only shadows and danger. Fear tells them that if they stop moving, they will fall, so they continue to circle, beating their wings against the empty air, growing more exhausted with every passing minute. Dear friend, your mind is that midnight sky right now. Your thoughts are those restless birds, circling endlessly without a place to land. You believe that if you keep thinking, you will eventually find a safe place to stop. You think that one final, perfect piece of analysis will allow you to sleep. But the sky does not become safe because the birds fly faster. The sky is already safe because it is wide, vast, and completely still beneath the movement of the wings. An ancient Buddhist insight reminds us that a thought is not an obligation. We often treat every worry as a command that must be obeyed immediately. When a painful memory or an anxious prediction flies into our awareness, we chase after it. We try to catch it, examine it, and tame it. This constant chasing is what wears you down. The exhaustion you feel does not come from the thoughts themselves, but from your effort to manage them. You are trying to control a flock of wild birds in the dark. You are not broken because your mind is active tonight. A busy brain is simply a heart trying very hard to protect itself from uncertainty. It is an act of survival, not a personal failure tonight. Nothing is required of your intellect. You do not have to solve the mysteries of tomorrow or heal the wounds of yesterday. In this hour, we are going to offer those circling wings a different option. We are going to let the sky be wide enough to hold them without joining their frantic flight. Let your shoulders drop slightly into the mattress. Notice if your teeth are clenched, and gently release your lower jaw. There is a small pocket of tension right between your eyebrows where your worries like to gather. See if you can let that specific area soften just a little bit. You do not need to force a deep state of meditation. Even a tiny sliver of release is enough for right now. Maybe you have felt this way for many weeks, or even many years. You might believe that your overthinking is a sign of wisdom or preparation. We tell ourselves that if we worry enough, we can prevent bad things from happening. We believe that anxiety is a shield that keeps us safe from surprise. But this shield is too heavy to carry while you are trying to sleep. It does not change the outcome of tomorrow. It only robs you of the strength you need to face it. In a moment, this story will show us something even quieter about the nature of our tangled minds. We will journey up a quiet mountain path to visit an old weaving shed. We will meet an old weaver who understands the heavy knots we tie inside our own hearts. But before we travel there, let us simply sit with the truth of where you are right now. You are a tired traveler who has been running a marathon inside their own skull. It is okay to acknowledge that you are deeply weary. Let us look back at those circling birds in the dark sky of your mind. Notice how they do not harm the sky. The sky does not get scratched by their sharp claws, and it does not get bruised by their beating wings. The sky simply provides the space for them to exist. It remains vast, silent, and undisturbed, no matter how many birds are flying through it. Tonight, you can step out of the feathers and become the sky itself. You can be the spacious awareness that watches the thoughts move without needing to guide their flight. Take a slow breath in through your nose, feeling the cool air enter your body. Let the breath go out through your mouth, very slowly, letting a bit of that heaviness leave your chest. You do not need to find an answer to the questions that are keeping you awake. The questions can exist in the dark, and you can let them remain unanswered for now. The morning will bring its own light, but the night belongs to stillness. Allow your physical form to sink a fraction deeper into the bed. You are supported by the solid ground beneath you, and you do not need to hold yourself up anymore. Let the frantic birds circle if they must, but do not fly with them. Let them use their own energy while you rest in the space below. We are moving toward a place of deeper understanding, step by step, breath by breath. Think of how much energy it takes to follow a single thought down a winding hallway at midnight. One thought tells you that you made a mistake, and then another thought arrives to defend you. A third thought reminds you of an old regret, and soon an entire crowd is shouting in the darkness. This is the pattern of conceptual proliferation that the old masters warned us about. It is like a single spark that sets fire to a whole forest of assumptions. You do not have to put out the fire tonight. You only need to stop throwing fresh wood onto the embers. Every time you refuse to answer an anxious thought, you are choosing your own well-being. Every time you allow a question to remain open without searching for an immediate conclusion, you are resting. This is a quiet rebellion against the urgency of the mind. The mind always says that you must think right now, or something terrible will happen. But the night is built for non-doing. The night is a sanctuary where the demand for answers is temporarily suspended. As you lie here, imagine the wind high above the mountaintops, cooling the air and clearing the mist. The birds in the sky are beginning to feel the natural rhythm of the night. They are slowing down, widening their circles, and gliding on the cold currents of air. They are not fighting the wind anymore, but letting it carry them. You can do the same with your awareness right now. You can let the natural gravity of sleep pull you downward, away from the noise and into the soft, dark space of pure existence. Let your awareness settle into the simple rising and falling of your chest. There is no right way to do this, and there is no score to keep. You are doing perfectly just by being here, listening, and breathing. The birds will find their branches when they are ready, and the sky will remain wide and unbothered. Let us prepare our hearts to receive the story of the old weaver, and find out how a tangled knot can unravel without any force at all. High on the northern slope of the misty ridges, where the air smells of wet slate and wild pine, there was a small wooden weaving shed. The roof was made of thick cedar bark, weighted down by heavy stones to withstand the mountain gales. Inside this shed, an old man named Master Jean lived a life measured by the rhythmic clucking of a heavy oak loom. He was a person of few words, his hands calloused from decades of sliding shuttles through coarse hemp and delicate silk. People from the low valley seldom climbed this high, unless their spirits had become completely snarled by the complexities of the world below. One chilly autumn morning, a young man named Ren climbed the steep mountain trail. Ren was an intelligent clerk from the provincial governor's office, a man whose job required him to analyze tax records, decipher diplomatic letters, and anticipate political rivalries. He was excellent at his work, but his mind had become an unyielding machine that refused to turn off. For many months he had not slept more than a few hours a night. His head felt crowded with 1,000 scenarios, replaying every conversation he had held, and inventing disasters that might occur next season. His eyes were bloodshot, and his shoulders were permanently hunched as if he were bracing for an invisible blow. When Ren stepped through the creaking door of the weaving shed, the smell of raw unspun wool and old cedar enclosed him. Master Jian did not leave his bench. He merely nodded, his eyes fixed on the interlacing threads before him. Ren did not know how to begin, so he stood by the door, his fingers tightly interlocking. The loud, steady sound of the loom filled the room. a slow mechanical rhythm that seemed completely indifferent to the panic vibrating inside the young clerk's chest. After a long silence, Ren spoke, his voice cracking with exhaustion. He explained that his mind was spinning like a runaway wheel. He confessed that he could no longer find peace, because every simple event in his life became a massive web of worry. If a colleague frowned, Ren spent 3 nights analyzing the frown. If an edit was made to his reports, he spent days wondering if he was about to be dismissed. He begged the old weaver for a method to cut through his thoughts, a way to smash the machinery of his mind so he could finally know stillness. Master Jean listened until Ren ran out of breath. The old man stopped his loom. He stood up slowly, his knees making a small popping sound in the quiet room. He walked over to a dark corner of the shed, where a broken, discarded loom sat covered in gray dust. From the side of this ancient machine, he lifted a small, hand-carved wooden weaver's shuttle. It was made of polished cherry wood, worn smooth by the friction of 1,000,000 passes across the warp threads. The old man did not offer a profound proverb. Instead, he placed the heavy wooden shuttle directly into Ren's trembling hands. Ren looked down at it. The shuttle was completely jammed. Hundreds of meters of fine silk thread, dyed in chaotic shades of indigo, crimson, and ochre, were wrapped around the wooden spindle in a massive, impenetrable knot. It looked like a small, colorful animal that had been strangled by its own nest. Master Jean told Ren that this shuttle had been ruined by an over-eager apprentice many years ago. The boy had panicked when a single thread broke, and he had tried to correct the mistake by forcing the shuttle through the loom backwards, pulling and tugging until the entire mechanism locked completely. The old weaver looked into Ren's tired eyes and told him that if he wanted to sleep beneath his roof tonight, he must first untangle this single shuttle. The old man then returned to his own bench, picked up his working shuttle, and resumed his slow, rhythmic weaving, leaving the young man alone in the dim light. Ren sat down on a low wooden 3-legged stool near the window. A chilly draft blew through the open lattice, cooling his sweaty forehead. He looked at the wooden object in his lap, feeling a sudden surge of confidence. He was a clerk after all. He solved complex administrative problems every day. Surely a simple knot of silk could not defeat his intellect. He found the loose end of a red thread and pulled it. The thread tightened, burying itself deeper into the blue and yellow strands. Ren frowned. He used his fingernails to pry at a clump of purple silk, trying to force a loop over the wooden tip of the shuttle. He pulled harder, his breath becoming short and shallow. The silk resisted. The fibers groaned under the tension, locking even tighter around the core of the wood. For 2 hours, Ren worked with frantic intensity. He used his analytical mind to trace the path of individual threads, trying to predict where they led. He formulated strategies, treating the knot as an adversary that had to be outsmarted. But the more he analyzed, the more complicated the knot became. His fingers grew cramped, his vision blurred in the fading autumn light. The dry, repetitive clacking of Master Jean's loom seemed to mock his frustration. Finally, in a burst of anger, Ren pulled a yellow thread with all his strength, hoping to break it free. The silk snapped, but the remaining fragment instantly withdrew into the center of the mass, making the core of the knot completely solid, like a stone. Ren dropped the wooden shuttle onto the floor. It hit the rough planks with a dull clack. He covered his face with his hands and began to weep silently, his shoulders shaking. He realized that his attempt to fix the shuttle was exactly like his attempt to fix his life. Every time he tried to untangle an anxious thought, he only pulled the knot tighter. Every time he argued with his own mind, he created 10 new arguments to replace the first one. His cleverness was not saving him. His intellect was the very thing that was binding him to his misery. He was completely defeated by a piece of wood and some silk. Master Jean stopped his loom once more. The evening sun was setting behind the western peaks, casting long amber shadows across the dusty floorboards. The old man walked over, picked up the fallen shuttle, and sat down on the floor next to the weeping clerk. He did not scold the young man for breaking the thread. He simply held the tangled object between his 2 large, rough palms, resting it lightly on his lap. The old weaver whispered that Ren was using the energy of a hunter to do the work of a gardener. He pointed out that when silk is pulled tight, its fibers swell and bite into one another, creating a prison of friction. The old man did not try to pick at the knot. Instead, he did something that astonished the young clerk. He placed his thumbs on opposite sides of the silk mass and gently pushed the threads inward toward the center of the shuttle. He was intentionally making the knot looser, giving it more space, allowing the tension to drain out of the silk. Ren watched in absolute silence as the compacted nest of thread began to soften. The individual colors separated slightly, revealing small gaps of empty air between the strands. The old man did not pull a single thread out. He just held the shuttle with completely relaxed hands, allowing the built-up strain in the fibers to unravel itself naturally, without any friction. In a moment, this story will show us something even quieter about the nature of our tangled minds. But as Ren sat there in the twilight, he felt a strange, cold shock of recognition pass through his chest. He looked at his own white knuckles, which were still clenched into tight fists. He looked at the gentle, open palms of the old weaver. He saw that the secret did not lie in finding the right thread to pull. The secret lay in removing the tension that made the knot possible in the first place. The room grew dark, and the wind outside began to die down. The birds that had been circling the mountain peak all afternoon were settling into the high pine branches, their wings finally still. Ren felt the heavy weight in his forehead begin to shift, just a fraction, as he stared at the softened silk. He did not know how to apply this to his own chaotic life yet. But for the first time in many months, he took a deep, unrestricted breath that went all the way down to his stomach. The ancient looms of our ancestors carried a truth that directly touches your wakefulness tonight. This old narrative is not a lecture designed to make you feel guilty for having a complicated mind. It is not an order to freeze your heart or stop caring about your life. Human feelings are natural, and they are beautiful. When someone treats you coldly, it hurts. When a plan falls apart, disappointment arises. Buddhist wisdom does not ask you to become a stone statue that feels absolutely nothing. It points to an entirely different kind of quietness, one that lives just beneath the noise. Let us look closely at how the young clerk suffered at his stool. His true torment did not come from the single red thread that broke on the loom. The breakage was just a small, ordinary mishap of the morning. His real agony began when he panicked, when his fingers became rigid, and when he tried to force the wood through the mechanism backwards. In your own life, a difficult conversation or an uncertain future is simply that first broken thread. It is a single event, limited in time and space, yet the mind immediately begins to spin a massive web of commentary around it. We pull and tug at the event with our thoughts, trying to rewrite history or control the reactions of others. We think we are fixing the problem, but we are actually jamming the entire shuttle. This psychological habit of adding extra layers to our reality is what creates the heavy exhaustion you feel in your bones right now. The original occurrence is often small, but the mental monologue we construct around it is vast and suffocating. You are taking a single phrase spoken by a colleague, and you are weaving an entire future where you are unappreciated, lonely, and discarded. This is how the mind builds a cage out of pure imagination. The suffering does not live in the world outside. It lives in the tight friction of how we hold the day after it has already passed. Consider what happens when you try to grasp a single thought and force it to yield an answer. You are doing exactly what Ren did when he yanked on that yellow thread until it snapped. You are demanding that the mystery of your life resolve itself right this second. This intense gripping is what we mean when we talk about the burden of attachment. It is the anxious conviction that you cannot be safe unless a specific person approves of you, or a specific outcome is guaranteed. This conviction turns every casual encounter into a high-stakes battle for survival. Your brain becomes a courtroom where you are constantly defending your worth, and that is why you cannot sleep. True mindfulness is not a complex intellectual state that you must study for years to achieve. It is simply the capacity to observe a thought without instantly jumping onto its back. It is the ability to see a heavy, dark bird flying across the sky of your awareness and to say to yourself, "There is a worry," without becoming the worry. When you do not chase the bird, it eventually flies out of sight. It has nowhere to perch because you have refused to offer it a branch. You are letting the sky remain open, clear, and spacious. This shifting of awareness changes everything about your internal landscape. When you realize that your thoughts are merely temporary visitors, you stop treating them as absolute commands. A wave of anxiety may wash through your chest, but you do not have to build a whole house inside that wave. You can feel the physical sensation of tightness, notice it with great gentleness, and allow it to pass through you like wind through a screen. The wind does not damage the wire mesh, it simply passes through the empty spaces. Slowly, the teaching becomes personal. Think of how much relief is available to you when you stop demanding that the world be perfectly smooth before you allow yourself to rest. The loom of life will always produce an occasional knot. People will misunderstand you, plans will shift, and tomorrow will always contain an element of mystery. If your peace depends on everything being neatly aligned, you will never find a single night of real rest. Peace does not arrive because you have untangled every thread in your past. It arrives when you find the courage to leave the shuttle alone while it is still messy. The old weaver did not use force to loosen the silk. He simply changed his relationship to the tension. He pushed the threads inward, giving them space to breathe, allowing the friction to melt away naturally. This is the very definition of compassionate awareness. It is the willingness to look at your own busy, overpopulated mind and to say, it is okay that there is confusion here right now. Instead of tightening your grip and trying to self-correct through anger, you allow the knot to be spacious. You give your fears permission to exist without trying to fight them. What if the rest you need is not a destination you have to earn through hours of deep thinking? What if the stillness is already present, sitting quietly beneath the movement of your breath? When you stop throwing the fuel of analysis into the fire of your worries, the flames naturally die down. The mind begins to realize that it does not need to protect you by staying awake all night. It can let go of the shield, because the sky does not need a shield to protect it from the clouds. In a moment, this story will show us something even quieter. But right now, let us let this understanding sink into your physical form. You do not need to be a perfect practitioner of Zen to experience this softness. You only need to notice the slight difference between being trapped inside a thought and watching the thought from a distance. The moment you notice your own overthinking, you are already outside of it. You are no longer the bird. You are the space that holds its flight. Let us trust this space tonight. Let us believe that your value as a human being is not dependent on your ability to solve every dilemma before the sun rises. You are allowed to leave the loom unfinished. The threads will not disappear if you close your eyes. They will wait quietly in the dark, and they will soften even more if you stop pulling them. Allow your heart to accept this gentle truth as we prepare to bring this ancient wisdom directly into the physical reality of your own body. Let us bring this old mountain wisdom directly into the physical space you occupy right now. There is no need to sit up, and there is no need to adopt a rigid posture. Your bed is your sanctuary, and you are permitted to remain exactly as you are. If it feels right, let your eyes close completely, allowing the boundaries of the room to fade into a soft, dark blur. We are going to enter a space of non-doing, where you do not have to achieve anything at all. You are not trying to manufacture a state of deep enlightenment, and you are not trying to force your mind to become a blank sheet of paper. Even noticing your own restlessness is an extraordinary act of awareness. Take a slow breath in through your nose, letting the cool air fill the upper chambers of your chest. Hold it for just a brief, comfortable moment, and then let it release through your lips like a long, quiet sigh. Feel the slight drop in your chest as the air leaves your body. Let us do that once more, drawing in a smooth, effortless stream of air. As you exhale this time, let your shoulders sink a fraction deeper into the mattress. Imagine that the mattress is made of soft, receptive earth, perfectly capable of holding your entire weight without any effort from you. You do not need to hold yourself up. You can fully give your weight away to the surface beneath you. Now, let us bring our attention to the physical landscape of your head. There is often a hidden tightness in the muscles around your eyes, a subtle tension born from a day of looking, evaluating, and analyzing. If it feels right, let the small muscles around your eyelids loosen, allowing your eyes to rest heavily in their sockets. Move your awareness down to your jawline. Many of us clench our teeth when we are trying to control our lives. Gently part your lips just a millimeter. creating a tiny bit of empty space between your upper and lower teeth. Feel how that single small adjustment allows the skin on your cheeks and your throat to soften. Perhaps you can feel a slight tingling warmth in your palms. Let your fingers curl naturally, completely empty of any tools, devices, or responsibilities. Your hands have done enough work for today. They do not need to grasp anything else tonight. Let them rest by your side like two smooth stones at the bottom of a quiet river. As you lie here in this relaxed state, a thought will almost certainly arise. A memory from this afternoon might drift into your awareness, or a worry about an appointment tomorrow might call out to you. When this happens, you do not need to get angry with yourself. You do not need to push the thought away with a mental fist. Instead, let us change how we greet this visitor. If a thought appears, look at it with great gentleness and give it a simple name. You might silently whisper to yourself, "There is the future," or "There is the old conversation." By naming the thought, you are acknowledging its presence without stepping inside it. You are remaining on the riverbank, watching the leaf float past. Let us bring our specific practice image into our mind now. Imagine you are sitting quietly on the wooden floor of Master Jean's weaving shed. The room is dark, but a faint silver glow from the midnight sky filters through an open lattice window. The wind is completely still. High above, the frantic flock of birds is still circling in the dark, but you are not up there with them. Instead, you are looking at the open lattice window itself. Imagine that each of your thoughts is a single, stray feather that has broken loose from those circling wings. A gray feather drifts through the wooden square of the window, twisting slowly in the cool air. It has no weight, no urgency, and no power over you. It is just a fragment of movement. You might feel the temptation to reach out your hand and catch it, to examine where it came from, or to worry about which bird lost it. But tonight, you can choose to do something much softer. You can simply watch the feather fall. Watch it descend through the empty space of the room, turning over and over in the dim light. It falls past your shoulder, completely silent, and lands softly on the rough wooden floorboards. It rests there, perfectly still. It does not demand an answer. It does not require you to fix your life. It is just a feather lying on the wood. And the moment it lands, you let your eyes return to the open window, waiting for the next one to arrive. Perhaps another feather enters the lattice, representing a conversation that hurts your feelings. You see it, you recognize its color, and you let it drift downward. You do not pick it up to weave it into a heavy blanket of worry. You allow it to land on the floor alongside the first one. Soon, there are several feathers resting quietly on the dark wood around your feet. They do not crowd the room. They do not cause a fire. They are simply taking up a tiny bit of space on the floor, while the air around you remains wide, cool, and completely open. In a moment, this story will show us something even quieter. But right now, let us notice how much less energy it takes to watch a feather fall than to chase a bird through a storm. You are practicing the art of spacious allowance. You are telling your anxious mind that its concerns have been seen, but that you are choosing to stay on the solid ground. There is no need to force this image to be perfect. If your mind wanders into a story for a few minutes, that is completely natural. As soon as you realize you have been pulled away, gently, without a single shred of judgment, bring your awareness back to the open lattice window and watch the next feather drift down. Feel the natural rhythm of your breath as you watch this internal scenery. Each inhalation is like the cool night air entering the open window. Each exhalation is like a feather settling onto the quiet floor. The breath happens all by itself, without your intellectual guidance. Your heart beats all by itself. Your body knows how to survive without your constant analysis. You can trust this deep, organic intelligence. You can retire from your job as the manager of the universe for the next few hours. There is no pressure to heal your entire relationship with uncertainty tonight. Even if you only manage to let go of one single thought, that is a profound victory. You are retraining your nervous system to understand that safety is not found in having all the answers, but in the capacity to rest without them. You are allowing the knot in your chest to become loose, just like the silk threads on the old cherry wood shuttle. You are letting the tension drain out into the dark space of the room. Let your body sink even a fraction deeper into the mattress. The world outside is moving through its natural cycle of darkness and renewal. The trees do not struggle to grow in the dark, and the stars do not fight to shine. They simply exist in their own perfect time. You are part of that same nature, and you are allowed to move at a slower pace tonight. Let the feathers fall wherever they must. Let the floor hold them. Let the night hold you, and let your awareness rest in the vast, unbothered space that lies just behind the noise of your thoughts. 3 seasons had passed since Ren first stepped into the weaving shed, and the mountain air had turned thin and sharp with the arrival of early winter. The young clerk had learned how to let his hands go slack at the loom. Yet a more stubborn layer of restlessness still lingered deep within his chest. He had stopped frantically pulling at the broken threads of his past, but now he found himself paralyzed by the phantom shapes of his future. A rumor had reached the valley that the provincial governor was planning a massive reorganization of the civil registry, an event that could throw Ren out of his employment or send him to a desolate outpost on the western border. His mind immediately built a castle of scenarios around this rumor, calculating every possible disaster, sleeplessly tracing every potential hardship. He knew he was yanking on a new knot, yet the sheer panic of the unknown made him grip his thoughts like weapons. Master Jian noticed the rigid line of the young man's spine as he sat staring through the window at the gathering snow clouds. The old weaver did not offer an explanation or a soothing phrase. He simply instructed Ren to carry a small wooden tub of provisions up to the very summit of the peak, where an isolated nun named Sister Sora tended to an ancient alpine weather vane. Ren welcomed the physical task, hoping the steep climb would exhaust the electricity in his limbs. He stepped out into the biting cold, his boots crunching against the frosty slate path as he ascended into the higher, windswept regions of the mountain. The summit was an entirely different world, an exposed platform of dark stone, where the trees could no longer grow and the wind changed its direction with every passing hour. Sister Sora lived in a tiny cell built of dry-stacked stone. She was a quiet woman with clear, steady eyes that looked as though they had spent decades scanning vast horizons. When Ren arrived, gasping for breath and shivering from the high-altitude chill, she did not invite him inside to warm his hands by a fire. Instead, she led him to a flat ledge that overlooked a drop of thousands of meters, a place where the mountains simply ended and the empty sky began. On the center of this cold stone ledge sat a small, unpolished piece of dark mountain slate. It was completely flat, rough at the edges, and darkened by decades of exposure to ice and sun. Sister Sora reached into a small earthenware container she carried, pulled out a hollow reed, and let a single perfect drop of morning dew fall onto the exact center of the dark stone. The droplet sat there like a miniature glass bead, clear and trembling, reflecting the gray expanse of the sky above them. The nun looked at Ren and told him that a major storm was approaching from the eastern valley, a gale that would bring sub-zero winds and heavy snow before nightfall. She gave him a simple instruction. He must sit on the freezing stone ledge and keep that single drop of dew perfectly safe from the elements. He must ensure that the wind did not blow it away, and that the coming frost did not destroy its perfect, clear form. Ren looked at her in disbelief, wondering if the isolation of the peak had broken her understanding of reality. To protect a drop of water on an open mountain summit during a winter storm was a completely impossible task. Yet, remembering the lesson of the weaving shuttle, he swallowed his objections, knelt down on the hard ground, and placed his body between the wind and the slate. Within 20 minutes, the first gusts of the storm arrived, howling over the ridge like a pack of wolves. Ren immediately felt his old patterns of hypervigilance wake up with a fierce intensity. His mind began to race, calculating the angle of the wind, trying to use his wide wool cloak as a shield to block the air. He leaned forward, his face just inches from the dark piece of slate, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Every time the wind shifted, he threw his body to the opposite side, his muscles cramping from the sudden movements, his eyes wide and unblinking as he stared at the tiny drop of water. The emotional challenge was overwhelming. Ren felt an intense, burning anger rising in his throat. He felt mocked by the assignment, terrified of failure, and deeply resentful of the uncertainty that surrounded him. His mind began to scream that the nun was cruel, that the mountain was a trap, and that his life was being wasted on an exercise that made no logical sense. He was trying to control the wind itself, using his fragile, shivering body to fight an invisible force that owned the entire sky. He was so consumed by this internal argument that he did not notice his own heavy breathing was creating a warm current of air right above the stone. Suddenly, a small, accidental puff of air from Ren's own nose struck the surface of the slate. The tiny drop of dew shivered, slid across the dark stone, and dissolved instantly into a dry crack at the edge, disappearing forever. Ren dropped his forehead onto the freezing slate, his tears mixing with the light snow that was beginning to fall. He had failed completely. He had destroyed the very thing he was trying to protect, not because the mountain wind was too strong, but because his own defensive movements had become too chaotic. He sat there in the gathering darkness, waiting for Sister Sora to return and banish him from the mountain for his incompetence. He felt the cold stone biting into his knees, and he stopped fighting the chill. He stopped moving. He simply sat in the middle of the howling storm, completely defeated, staring at the empty, dark piece of slate. In a moment, this story will show us something even quieter. But this was the exact second where the mind of the young clerk began to undergo a subtle, unspoken transformation. As he sat perfectly still, no longer trying to block the wind or protect an illusion, he noticed something he had missed during his hours of frantic effort. He looked at the flat piece of mountain slate. It was completely unharmed by his failure. The wind howled across its surface, but it did not leave a single scratch. The snow fell upon it, but the hard stone did not break or cry out. The slate did not care whether it held a drop of dew or whether it was completely dry. It was simply a solid, spacious, unshakable presence that allowed the elements to pass over it without absorbing their fury. Sister Sora stepped out from her stone cell, her robe fluttering loudly in the gale. She did not look at him with disappointment. She knelt down next to him, her face completely calm in the freezing air, and she placed her bare hand on the cold slate. She whispered to Ren that his mind had spent its entire life trying to be the fragile drop of dew, constantly terrified of being shattered, always searching for a perfect shield against the changes of the world. She pointed out that he had been treating every rumor, every potential layout change, and every future worry as a storm that would destroy his very existence. The nun looked directly into his tired eyes and told him that the true purpose of his journey was not to save the water, but to realize that he was actually the slate itself. She explained that his true nature was not the fleeting, trembling drop of commentary that could be blown away by a single word from the governor. His true nature was the spacious, unyielding awareness that held the stone, the sky, and the storm without damaged by any of them. Ren took a slow, deep breath, the freezing air burning his lungs, but his chest felt wider than it had in years. He did not magically become a perfect master of wisdom in that moment. His fear about his job did not completely vanish, and his body was still shivering from the cold. But a profound shift had occurred in how he related to his own suffering. He looked at the empty slate, and instead of trying to find another drop of water to protect, he simply allowed his hands to rest flat against the cold stone. He chose to sit with the uncertainty of the winter night, breathing before he reacted, no longer treating the movement of the wind as an assault on his soul. He had stopped trying to control the sky, and in doing so, he had finally found a piece of ground that could not be shaken. Let us sit quietly with the realization that came to Ren on that frozen peak. The change he experienced was not a magical disappearance of his life's problems. The provincial governor's reorganization was still happening. The winter cold was still real, and his job was still uncertain. His transformation was much subtler, and much deeper. He shifted his entire identity from the fragile drop of water to the dark, spacious mountain slate beneath it. When we look into the mechanics of our own sleeplessness, we can see that we have been doing the exact opposite. We have been mistaking ourselves for the trembling droplet, terrified of every passing breeze. Consider the enormous emotional labor you expend when you lie awake trying to rehearse the future. Your mind believes it is practicing a form of wisdom by building detailed mental maps of every potential disaster. You believe that if you can just predict how a conversation will go, or how a crisis will unfold, you can shield your heart from being wounded. This is fear disguising itself as preparation. It is an illusion of control that your brain uses to keep you safe from the discomfort of not knowing. You are treating the future as an active emergency that must be managed right now, in the middle of the night, from an empty room. This constant rehearsal is intimately tied to how we handle our past. When you replay an old mistake over and over in the dark, you are attempting to rewrite history through the force of your own regret. You dissect the tone of your voice, you critique your facial expressions, and you invent better responses that you wish you had delivered. This is a subtle way of trying to fix yourself through shame. We subconsciously believe that if we punish ourselves enough with harsh self-judgment, we will somehow prevent ourselves from failing again. You are using your own memory as a weapon against your peace, turning an ordinary human error into a permanent prison sentence. A profound realization occurs when we distinguish between the simple occurrences of life and the secondary torment we construct around them. In Buddhist psychology, it is recognized that existence will always present us with elements of discomfort. There will be sudden cold winds, unexpected changes in our social status, and moments where people fail to understand our intentions. These events are like the frost that falls naturally on the mountain ledge. They are unavoidable aspects of being alive. This is the first layer of experience, an objective reality that is often completely outside of our personal control. Our true suffering begins when we refuse to let that reality be what it is. The mind encounters a difficult moment and immediately launches an intense inner protest. We shout in the dark that things should be different, that people should treat us better, and that the future must be completely secure before we can breathe. This resistance is what turns an ordinary cold night into an agonizing struggle for survival. You are no longer just experiencing a difficult season. You are turning that season into a personal accusation about your worth. You are wrapping the cold stone in endless layers of anxious commentary, tightening the knot until the air can no longer pass through. Think of how this pattern manifests when you seek constant approval from the people around you. When you decode a text message for hours, looking for signs of withdrawal or judgment, you are treating their opinion as the wind that will blow your entire existence away. You have allowed your sense of safety to become so small and fragile that a single indifferent glance from a stranger can cause an internal earthquake. You have forgotten that your awareness is already vast enough to hold their opinions without adopting them as your truth. You are acting like a bird that believes the sky will collapse if it stops beating its wings for a single second. When you turn your anxiety into a permanent identity, the burden becomes even heavier. We begin to say to ourselves, "I am an overthinker," or "I am a broken person who cannot find peace." By doing this, you are taking a temporary movement of thoughts and weaving it into a solid wall that encloses your soul. You are defining yourself by the flock of birds rather than the sky that allows them to fly. The flock is just passing through. The birds do not own the air, and they do not define its depth. They are simply guests of the wind, arriving for a season and leaving when the currents change. Now let this wisdom come closer to your own life. Peace does not require you to build a perfect, unassailable fortress where nothing bad ever happens. True emotional freedom arises when you change your relationship with the difficulty itself. When a wave of worry enters your chest, you can learn to sit with that physical sensation without immediately spinning a story to explain it. You can notice the tight coil in your stomach, observe the rapid pulse in your throat, and greet those sensations with immense compassion. You can say to your heart, "It is natural that there is fear here right now, but I do not need to turn this fear into a blueprint for tomorrow." Imagine your awareness as a massive dark piece of alpine slate resting on the high ridge. The thoughts of your mind are like the snowflakes drifting down from the winter sky. Some snowflakes are large and dark, representing heavy regrets. Others are small and fast, representing fleeting anxieties about tomorrow. When a snowflake lands on the stone does not argue with it. It does not try to push the snow away, nor does it try to hold on to its shape. The stone simply remains solid, spacious, and completely still. It allows the snow to rest on its surface, knowing that the warmth of the natural day will eventually dissolve it back into nothingness. Tonight, you can choose to be the stone. You can let the thoughts land on the surface of your awareness without absorbing their chill. You do not have to be a perfect practitioner of calmness to find this rest. You only need to give up your job as the protector of the dewdrop. You can let the future remain unwritten, and you can let the past remain unchangeable. The world will continue to turn all by itself, and your value as a human being is already secure, entirely independent of whether you solve your dilemmas tonight. In a moment, this story will show us something even quieter. We will see how this spacious slate can be carried down from the high mountain summit and placed directly into the noisy, complicated routines of your modern everyday life. But before we take that step, let your body fully absorb the silence of the high ridge. Feel the deep, stable gravity that holds the mountain in place. Let that same gravity pull your chest downward into a state of quiet surrender. You have run far enough for today. The loom is silent, the sky is wide, and the stone beneath you is completely unshakable. Let us carry this heavy piece of dark alpine stone down from the windy peaks and place it directly into the center of your busy modern day. We do not live in remote weaving sheds or high stone cells. We live in a world of flashing screens, urgent notifications, and constant demands. The storms we face do not always look like mountain gales. Often, they look like a text message left on read for 5 hours, or an email that sounds slightly cold, or the quiet panic of watching other people look happy on a phone screen while you feel completely stagnant inside. These are the modern winds that threaten to blow your peace away. Think of how your mind acts when you are waiting for a critical message to arrive. You look at the dark glass of your phone every 2 minutes, your heart making a small, anxious leap each time the screen stays dark. You are doing exactly what Ren did when he leaned over the slate, trying to block the mountain air with his own shivering body. You are trying to micromanage the thoughts and timelines of another human being. Your brain constructs 10 different scenarios to explain their silence, assuming you have caused offense or that a relationship is crumbling. You are taking a single quiet hour in the afternoon and turning it into a total disaster. Maybe you know the specific exhaustion of walking through your workspace with a bright, pleasant smile frozen on your face, while your chest feels as heavy as a lead weight. You are pretending to be perfectly fine because you fear that if anyone sees your confusion, they will judge you as weak. This is the ultimate burden of the clerk, believing that you must never make a mistake and that your worth depends entirely on your performance. You return home with your muscles knotted, your jaw tight, and your spirit drained from the sheer effort of wearing a mask all day. Then, when you finally lie down to rest, your brain punishes you for the exhaustion by replaying your small slip-ups from the morning. We often feel a strange, burning guilt when we try to take a simple break. We live in a culture that treats constant movement as a badge of honor, telling us that every hour must be productive. When you finally sit down to do nothing, a small voice inside your head whispers that you are falling behind, or that you should be working on your flaws. You are treating rest as a luxury that you have to earn by completing a massive list of tasks. This is the tight red thread gripping the cherry wood shuttle. You are pulling so hard on your own life that the mechanism locks up entirely, making it impossible to feel the very peace you are working so hard to achieve. Slowly, the teaching becomes personal. Emotional freedom does not mean you have to quit your job, move to a monastery, or stop caring about your family. It begins in the very small, unglamorous moments of a regular Tuesday. It begins when a difficult piece of news arrives, and instead of instantly jumping into a frantic inner monologue, you take one slow, deliberate breath. You pause. You feel the cool air enter your nostrils, and you remember the dark mountain slate. You choose to let the news sit on the stone for a few minutes before you decide what it means. This simple pause is a radical act of self-preservation. It is the moment you realize that an anxious thought is just a passing snowflake, not a permanent truth about who you are. When a voice inside your head says that you are failing, you do not have to obey that voice. You can look at it with immense gentleness and say, there is the old pattern of comparison again. By refusing to argue with the thought, you are removing the friction that keeps it burning. You are letting the snowflake melt on the stone without trying to catch it in your bare hands. Consider how this changes the way you hold your relationships. You can love someone deeply without gripping their life so tightly that you both begin to suffocate. You can express your feelings, offer your care, and still leave the outcome completely open. If they are having a quiet or distant day, you can allow them to have their space without assuming their distance is an indictment of your character. You stop treating their moods as a storm that will destroy your foundation. You become the wide sky that can hold their winter weather without losing its own deep identity. You are also allowed to grant yourself permission to rest without needing an excuse. You do not need to justify your fatigue to the universe, and you do not need to fix every problem in your family before you close your eyes. Rest is not a reward for a perfect life. It is the very ground that allows life to continue. When you choose to leave the loom unfinished at the end of the evening, you are practicing a profound form of trust. You are trusting that the world will stay in its orbit while you are asleep, and that your problems can wait in the dark without growing larger. In a moment, this story will show us something even quieter, as the metaphors dissolve into the final stillness of the midnight sky. But before the light completely fades, see how much lighter your day becomes when you stop treating your mind as a courtroom. You do not need to defend your existence to anyone, including yourself. If you made a mistake today, you can acknowledge it with clarity. Feel the natural sting of regret, and then let it drop onto the rough wooden floorboards like a fallen feather. You do not need to carry it in your pocket for the next 3 weeks. Think of how much energy you will save tomorrow when you start choosing which thoughts deserve your attention. A worry will appear, and you will simply look at its shape, name its color, and let it drift through the lattice window of your awareness. You will move through your office, your kitchen, or your neighborhood with a completely different posture. Your shoulders will be down, your hands will be relaxed, and your heart will be open to whatever weather the morning brings. You will no longer be an anxious traveler trying to predict the wind, but a steady mountain that knows how to endure the changing seasons. Let us bring this sense of deep stability back into the physical space of your bed right now. The day is completely over, and the modern world has locked its doors for the night. The emails have stopped, the notifications can wait, and the screens have gone dark. You have carried your burdens for many miles, and your feet are tired from the journey. You do not need to be a manager or a protector in this hour. You can lay your tools down right next to the slate, letting the soft darkness of the room enclose you like a protective cloak. Feel the slow, steady movement of your breath as it flows in and out of your body. This breath is your anchor, a gentle reminder that you are alive, you are safe, and you are already whole, just as you are. The threads of your life may still be tangled in some places, but tonight you are leaving the shuttle completely alone. Let the tension drain out of your muscles, let the noise fade into the background, and let your spirit settle into the solid, unshakable ground that has been waiting for you all along. The high mountain ridges have completely vanished into the deepest shadows of the night. The wooden loom in the valley weaving shed stands perfectly still in the darkness, its heavy shuttles resting quietly on the raw timber frames. The alpine wind that howled across the summit has dried to a tiny, imperceptible whisper. All the movement of the day has been pulled downward by the natural gravity of the evening. The cold stone ledge remains where it has always been, grounded, massive, and entirely unbothered by the darkness that now blankets its surface. Let your own physical form mirror this deep stillness of the mountain stone. Your breath is becoming slower now, a very gentle wave that rises and falls without any effort from your side. With each long, quiet exhalation, feel your limbs growing heavier, as if they are sinking directly into the protective surface of the bed. Your feet are completely relaxed. Your legs are heavy and warm. The muscles along your spine are releasing their last traces of vigilance, letting go of the need to stay rigid or alert. There is no one you need to protect in this room, and there is no danger coming from the dark. The flock of migratory birds that circled your mind for so many hours has finally flown beyond the distant horizon. Their wings are no longer beating against the air, and their sharp cries have faded into absolute silence. The empty sky they left behind is vast, dark, and beautiful. It is an immense canvas of deep velvet blue, stretching out in every direction without a single boundary. This vastness is your own resting consciousness. The thoughts were just temporary visitors, and now they have gone home to the forests. The sky remains completely unharmed, completely spacious, and deeply at peace. Let the ancient teachings settle softly into the center of your chest. You do not need to carry the wooden shuttle anymore. Tonight, you do not need to pick at the knots or worry about how the multicolored threads will interlace tomorrow. The loom of your life can remain completely unfinished while you sleep. The unfinished business is not a failure. It is simply the nature of being alive. The world knows how to take care of itself while your eyes are closed. The stars move through their courses. The earth turns on its axis, and your body breathes all by itself, sustained by an intelligence that does not require your permission or your anxiety. Feel the deep comfort of completely giving up your control. You are granting yourself a sacred exemption from the work of solving your life. For the next few hours, you do not have to be wise, you do not have to be prepared, and you do not have to be strong. You are allowed to be completely empty, like the open valley after the autumn harvest. Let your thoughts drift away like stray feathers falling through a lattice window into the dark, leaving the space behind your eyes entirely clear and quiet. Your jaw is soft, your forehead is smooth. The space between your eyebrows is wide and relaxed. The weight of your head is fully supported by the pillow, and you can let your awareness slide downward, away from the noise of the brain, and into the calm, rhythmic beating of your heart. Each pulse is a gentle reassurance that you are here. You are breathing, and you are already complete. You do not need to acquire anything new to be worthy of this rest. Peace is not a destination you have to reach through years of struggle. It is the fundamental space that remains when you finally stop fighting yourself. The darkness of the night is a soft blanket that covers all your questions. Let them remain unanswered in the dark. The morning will bring its own clarity. But right now, the clarity you need is the willingness to let go of the search. You can trust the dark stone beneath you. You can trust the wide sky above you. You can trust the quiet rhythm of your own breath as it carries you deeper and deeper into the soft, receptive current of deep sleep. As you drift away into this velvet stillness, let the last remaining image dissolve into pure awareness. There are no more birds, no more threads, and no more storms. There is only this immediate moment of pure existence, a quiet harbor where the tired traveler can finally put down their oars. You are safe enough to disappear into the quiet. You are secure enough to let the world go. And what if the profound stillness you have spent your whole life trying to build was actually the very space that has been holding you from the very beginning?